Today we're going to be setting up the dovetail jig to cut dovetails on our drawers. A couple important things to note. I've labeled the jig itself, and you can see on the top of the jig goes the front and back of your drawer, and in the front side of the jig goes the sides of your drawer. It says sides inside and front and back inside because you're going to put the inside of the drawer facing up or out. I went ahead and already cut the dados in my pieces. You don't have to do that. The dado blade was just set up, so I decided to. Remember, the insides of your drawers go up and out, so we want to have if you do have your dados, have those be visible. Otherwise, you're going to have them on the outside of your drawer. A couple things to check here. Number one, you can see that this metal jig right here, or this metal stop, offsets the front pieces from the side pieces. That's intentional. You'll see that when you put your project together, your drawer together, that it needs to be that way. I'm using the right side of the jig today because the left side of the jig has been chewed up. Somebody hit it with the router, so we're going to get some funny looking pins here if we use this side. That's just something that I'll probably have to replace as we go every year, so get a new template. Be careful when you're running this through in the router. Before you turn the router on, a couple things to check. Number one is I like to actually grab each piece to make sure that it's tight. It's very possible that one side is not tight. If a piece is loose, you don't want that coming loose while you're actually cutting your joint. You're going to come down here to these knobs and tighten these up. And on the top, there's two here and here. So the lever here does open and close, but those knobs are going to make it tight. The next thing we want to do is make sure that we have the correct router. We want to have the router that has this thing here called a bushing, and then the piece that the router bit should have an angle on it. It's called a dovetail bit. And the idea here is that this bushing rides against these fingers or pins on the jig. Try not to set the router on top of it. We just want the router to work in and out of each one of these, ensuring that we have completely routed out all of the pieces. Now I have both of my pieces in there right now. You would not have to do both. You can do two at a time, but it is important that you do have a side piece and a front and back piece in at the same time. I'm just doing this because it saves setup. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these with the router. Remember, the bushing here rides in the middle of all of these pins. I just ran the router through, and a couple things I want you to look at. If you look here, once in a while, we're going to get a spot like this where it didn't get routed all the way. So you want to double check that every one of these is round, because if they're not all round like this, the drawer will not fit together. So I'm going to go ahead and fire the router back up. Now that I just got the one side cut, I flip my pieces around, making sure that they stay the same way so the inside is still up, and I have to cut the other side now. What I've done now is cut the bottom out. To figure out the bottom size, you need to do a couple things. What I like to do is I'll just take the distance from here to here on the drawer, so left to right, and I know that I've got 1/4 inch deep dados on either side that the bottom is going to fit in, and I just add 3/8 of an inch. So take the inside dimensions of your drawer, so the distance from here to there and there to there, when you dry fit it together, and just add 3/8 of an inch, and your bottom will fit just fine. You'll notice that I have an MDF bottom. We're all out of the Baltic birch plywood 1/4 inch. And instead of using poplar or oak, just go with MDF. It doesn't look that good if you mix species of woods on a drawer, so just going with an MDF bottom is going to be the nicest looking thing for you. A couple things to look for when you dry fit it is check your outside dimensions, left to right. It's a lot easier to fix that right now. It should be 1 inch less than the opening. Actually, it's going to wind up being 2 inches less than the opening because we need to have room for the hinges and the spacer blocks. So measure your drawer left to right. It should be 2 inches less than the opening for your drawer. Now time to glue our drawer together. What you're going to need to do is get glue in here. Sorry, I can't do this very well holding the camera. Get glue in all of these. Only put them on one side. Now, I'm not going to go put glue on the other side of this because that just gets to be too much glue. So I'm going to use the tip of the glue bottle and spread the glue around nicely. Okay, I've got my project all glued together. Notice I've got clamps on there to help it dry. I got a little bit of extra glue in the corners, but I'm not perfect. What I want to do now before the glue is set up is I want to measure the diagonals. So I'm going to use my tape measure, hook it onto one corner, then I'm going to read what it says here. So I am, again, I'm sorry it's not focusing, but I'm at about 20 and 9/16. Then I'm going to go from the other diagonal and measure there. I'm about 20 and 5/8. So I am 5/8 of an inch, or 1/16 of an inch out of square. And that may sound picky, but we want to get that fixed. So because it's bigger on this side, over here, what I'm going to do is take and move the edge of this clamp out to here, and that should tweak it that 1/16 of an inch. And let it dry for about 5 minutes, and you can start putting it in your cabinet.